In this podcast episode, Randall Carlson and Ben van Kerkwyk discuss various topics related to ancient Earth's most violent catastrophes and the potential use of plasma technology in ancient civilizations. The conversation begins with the hosts expressing their excitement about recording the podcast in person for the first time. They mention that although they have done virtual podcasts together before, being in the same room adds a new dynamic to the conversation. The discussion then moves on to the topic of Joe Rogan censoring their previous podcast episode. Randall explains that during his appearance on Joe Rogan's show, he mentioned his ideas about the energy technology used by ancient cultures. However, he felt that he wasn't fully prepared to discuss it in detail at that time. Joe Rogan insisted on talking about it, and the conversation veered towards politics and scandals instead of the intended focus on plasma technology. As a result, Joe Rogan decided not to publish the episode immediately, which Randall found to be a relief. Randall then introduces Malcolm Bendall, an inventor he had been in contact with for several years. Malcolm had been working on prototypes and explaining the science and ideas behind plasma technology to Randall. However, Malcolm had faced scandals and character attacks in the past due to his involvement in the oil industry. Randall believes that this is a common pattern when individuals step outside the approved narrative. Ben adds that he has been interested in Malcolm's plasma technology and has seen videos of devices producing remarkable results, such as removing carbon monoxide from exhaust and increasing engine efficiency. He also mentions that the technology is being tested and verified by independent third parties. The conversation then shifts to the topic of sacred geometry. Randall explains that sacred geometry is the study of geometry with additional symbolism and philosophy. It is found throughout nature, from the molecular level to the cosmic level. He gives examples of how sacred geometry is manifested in the human body, such as the golden ratio in the proportions of the face and the ratio of the forearm. Ben adds that sacred geometry is also reflected in the structure of DNA, with pentagonal and hexagonal rings organizing the nucleotide bases. He mentions that the golden ratio is a universal constant found in various aspects of nature and the universe. The hosts discussed the potential applications of sacred geometry in architecture and art. They explain how ancient civilizations used sacred geometry to design temples and structures, and how it can create harmonious compositions in art. They also mention the concept of dynamic symmetry, which is a system that links various geometric relationships, including the golden ratio. Randall demonstrates the construction of dynamic symmetry using squares, rectangles, and diagonals. He shows how these geometric relationships can create a series of scale-invariant triangles and whirling rectangles. He explains that these forms are infinitely replicable and self-similar, which is a key idea in sacred geometry. The conversation continues with the hosts expressing their interest in exploring the fundamentals of sacred geometry in a future podcast episode. They believe that understanding sacred geometry can provide insights into ancient civilizations and their use of advanced technologies. They begin by explaining the concept of sacred geometry, which is the underlying template of geometry that exists behind the physical universe. This template is based on idealized numbers and ratios, which are found in various aspects of creation. They discuss how these principles were employed in ancient architecture, art, and even in the measurement systems used by ancient civilizations. One of the key concepts they discuss is the use of dynamic symmetry, which is a geometric principle that involves the relationship between different points and shapes within a composition. They explain how this principle was taught to architects and artists in the Middle Ages and how it can be used to create harmonious designs. They also delve into the relationship between sacred geometry and time. They explain how numbers and ratios govern the cosmic tempos and how understanding these cycles can give individuals a deeper understanding of the past and future. They provide examples from sacred texts and ancient traditions that highlight the importance of measurement and metrology in understanding the patterns of creation. They further explore the connection between sacred geometry and the Earth's physical properties. They discuss how the Earth's oblate spheroid shape is related to the ratios and measurements found in ancient systems of measurement, such as the mile and the furlong. They also discuss how ancient structures like Stonehenge may have been built using these principles. The conversation then shifts to the analysis of ancient artifacts, specifically predynastic vases. They explain how advanced metrological techniques, such as structured light scanning and CT scanning, have allowed for precise measurements of these artifacts. They discuss the remarkable accuracy and regularity found in the geometric relationships of different parts of the vases, suggesting a high level of engineering and precision that would be difficult to achieve by hand. They also discuss the discovery of geometric patterns and the use of the radian angle in the design of the vases. They explain how the curvatures of the vases match specific algorithms and how these patterns can be represented mathematically. The conversation continues with a discussion on the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which suggests that a comet or asteroid impact around 12,800 years ago caused a series of catastrophic events, including massive wildfires, climate change, and the extinction of many megafaunal species. Randall explains the evidence supporting this hypothesis, such as the discovery of nanodiamonds and other impact markers in sediment layers. They also explore the concept of uniformitarianism, which is the idea that geological processes observed today have always operated at the same rate throughout Earth's history. Randall argues that this assumption may not be accurate, as there is evidence of rapid and catastrophic changes in the geological record. The conversation then shifts to the topic of ancient megalithic structures, such as the Great Pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge. Randall discusses the precision and advanced engineering techniques involved in constructing these monuments, suggesting that they may have been built by a civilization with a high level of technological knowledge. They also discuss the mathematical patterns and sacred geometry found in ancient artifacts, such as the vases of ancient Egypt. Randall explains how these artifacts display a high degree of precision and symmetry, suggesting the use of advanced manufacturing techniques. He speculates that these artifacts may have been created using a Turing machine, which is essentially a mechanical computer. The conversation touches on the possibility of ancient civilizations having different forms of technology and problem-solving methods that may not resemble our modern civilization. They discuss the importance of precision in manufacturing and how it is often driven by functional requirements. Randall suggests that the precision found in ancient artifacts may indicate a functional purpose rather than purely ceremonial. They also explore the idea of ancient commerce and trade networks, pointing out evidence of extensive trade between ancient cultures. Randall argues that trade is a natural human activity and may have existed in ancient civilizations, even if it looked different from our modern economic systems. The conversation continues with a discussion on the precession of the equinoxes, which is the gradual shift of Earth's axis over a 26,000-year cycle. Randall explains how this astronomical phenomenon relates to the concept of the Great Year, which is divided into 12 cosmic months. They discuss the age of Pisces and the upcoming transition into the age of Aquarius, drawing connections to religious symbolism and mythology. They continue by discussing the symbolism of fish and ram in Hinduism and ancient Egyptian mythology. They explain that in Hinduism, the fish incarnation of Vishnu represents a previous astrological age, while the ram-headed sphinxes in Egypt symbolize the age of Aries. They also mention Moses and his association with the golden calf, which represents the previous age of Taurus. They then delve into the concept of astrological ages and their relation to biblical stories. They suggest that Jesus represents the age of Aries, which lasted approximately 2,000 years, and Moses represents the age of Taurus, which preceded the age of Aries. They argue that these astrological ages are reflected in the myths and stories of various cultures. The conversation then shifts to the Earth's orbit around the Sun and its speed. They explain that the Earth moves at a speed of 18.5 miles per second in its orbit, which translates to 66,600 miles per hour. They draw a connection between this number and the biblical reference to the number of the beast, 666. They suggest that this number represents the Earth's movement around the Sun and its significance in astronomical phenomena. They further discuss the Earth's axis and its movement over time. They explain that the Earth's axis changes its orientation over long periods, resulting in shifts in the North Star and the celestial equator. They argue that these shifts have a significant impact on climate and environmental changes on Earth. The conversation then turns to the concept of climate change and its relation to human activities. They emphasize that climate change has been a natural occurrence throughout Earth's history and that human activities are just one factor among many. They criticize the notion that the science of climate change is settled and argue that natural forces have played a dominant role in shaping the climate. They also discuss the Younger Dryas period, a time of significant climate change and mass extinction. They explain that there is still debate about the cause of the Younger Dryas, with some theories suggesting cosmic impacts and others suggesting solar ejections. They highlight the evidence for cosmic impacts, such as microdiamonds and extraterrestrial elements found in strata layers, as well as the cultural evidence of abandoned settlements and quarries. They continue by discussing the variability of the Sun and its potential role in climate change. They argue that the Sun is much more dynamic than previously assumed and that its variability should be considered in climate models. They suggest that solar storms and coronal mass ejections could have a significant impact on Earth's climate. They discuss the need for a shift in the understanding of Earth's history and the acceptance of catastrophism within academia. They mention the battle between the gradualistic and catastrophist models of Earth history and how the latter has been dismissed due to its association with biblical literalism. However, they believe that the acceptance of catastrophism is slowly happening, with events like the Cosmic Summit and the increasing reach of individuals like themselves through social media. The conversation then delves into the topic of pole shifts and crustal displacement. They clarify the difference between the magnetic pole and the geographic pole, explaining that the former migrates while the latter is the Earth's axis of rotation. They discuss Charles Hapgood's theory of crustal shift and how it was initially rejected by mainstream geophysics but has gained some recognition over time. Randall and Ben also touch on the idea of isostatic compensation, which refers to the adjustment of the Earth's crust to maintain equilibrium. They explain how the redistribution of surface mass, such as during glacial periods, can cause the land to depress or rise, leading to potential shifts in plate tectonics and accelerated geological processes. They conclude the podcast by highlighting the need for open engagement and debate within the scientific community regarding these topics. They express their desire for a more rigorous and inclusive discussion that goes beyond social media platforms. They also address the politicization of climate change and emphasized the importance of understanding the dynamic nature of Earth's climate throughout history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe.